Bang! Here we go. Why is it taking so long for my pages to refresh? So you see what I'm saying? SCYLLA, I'm going to call it SCYLLA. AD is partnering with IOTA for the supply chain digitization stuff. And so, like I said, I usually don't read press releases, but I don't read them from the crypto companies. But if the company says itself that it's using IOTA, well, that's an onboarding. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, remember back in the days when Ripple said MoneyGram was using the X-Rapid, right? Yeah, they weren't. They were testing it, right? But Ripple made it sound as if MoneyGram was using it all over the place, which was a lie. But when MoneyGram started using Stellar, which they do worldwide, MoneyGram uses Stellar. Yeah, well, MoneyGram gives the announcement, hey, guys, we're using this new thing called Stellar. We're upgrading our technology, right? And so that's the same thing as this. SCYLLA is the one coming out and saying, hey, guys, we're using this thing IOTA for supply chain digitization. So that's why tonight's two press releases are special, because it's the company saying that they're using the blockchain, right? It's not the blockchain bullshitting and saying that they're being used by a company. Meanwhile, you don't hear anything from the company, right? If you notice, that's the kind of stories I do. Like, I read third-party news, but usually we'll hear from the CEO of the blockchain, and then we'll hear from the CEO of the onboarded company, right? All right, well, this is directly from the onboarded company, SCYLLA, in this case for IOTA. And let me get a sip and wash it down, and we'll proceed. You know how be IOTA hodlers, bang! You know how IOTA be. You know how IOTA do. You know how IOTA get down. So let's check it out. And for those of you who don't know, well, I'm about to show you, fuckstick. Settle down. So look, the IOTA Foundation, the organization behind the IOTA open source distributed ledger technology, envisions a future where every single trade item in the global supply chain is tracked and its provenance sourced using distributed ledgers. Bang. This vision is already becoming a reality in East Africa, thanks to the collaboration of the IOTA Foundation and Trademark East Africa. So you remember we read about that? They've been working on that Trademark East Africa thing. Fuck, it's probably been around 2 years now, so it sounds like it's actually up and running now. Because remember when we read about it back in, I think it was even like 2020. Maybe like Q4 2020, right? End of Q4 2020, beginning of Q1 2021, right? And they started this thing with the East Africa trademark thing. And so now it sounds like it's actually up and running. So, because, companies start things sometimes, but they don't follow through, right? Sometimes things fall apart, deals fall apart. But like I said, this one is still ongoing. So these organizations teamed up to address the challenge of digitizing the export process for Kenya's flour exports, airliners, and freight forwarders. TMEA found that for just a single transaction, an African entrepreneur was completing an average of 200 communications. Remember I told you about my uncles? My family, we're Jamaican. We own a lot of land, and we export mangoes and sugarcane to America, Canada, and Britain. Yeah, well, it's a fucking pain in the ass. And look at it. It's the same shit with these guys. Well, it's the same everywhere. I mean, let's get real. It's everywhere in the world, right? Just to get one shipment out of whatever it is, 200 communications with this department, that department, this head, sign this paper, sign that paper, blah, 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 this lawyer, that lawyer, this bill of landing, that bill of landing, blah, blah, blah. And then go through the process again with the country that you want to send the products to. This department, that department, this bureau, that bureau, right? Including 96 paper documents, right? That's what it takes to get shit out of countries and onto your food table. Trust me, my family goes through that shit. I hear the stories all the time, but this is going to solve that problem. So the system, and which is a problem, right? This is not a solution looking for a problem. This is a fucking problem. And fuck, finally, someone is coming up with a solution. Trust me, since I was a child, I've heard the horror stories of just getting mangoes to America. Okay? Just getting mangoes to America. Trust me. I've said it on this channel a few times. You know, the mangoes you get, yeah, those were picked 6 months ago because that's how long it fucking takes to get that shipment to you, to your store. All right, so so you see what I'm saying? That's why this is a problem that finally has a solution. The system developed by the IOTA Foundation and TMEA anchors the key trade documents on the Tangle, a new type of distributed ledger technology that's different than traditional blockchain model. So I'm not going to get into the Tangle too much, but the Tangle is far superior to any blockchain. It is infinitely scalable. It is almost feeless, and it is absolutely secure, right? All the problems that blockchain has, the Tangle has the exact opposite. You can put more and more nodes and devices and whatever on the Tangle, and it just gets stronger, right? Infinite scalability. All right, so anyways, but that's all I'm going to say about that. And shares them with customers in destination countries. This expedites. In other words, this makes faster the export process. Holy. I'm going to tell my uncles about this. And makes African companies more competitive globally. Exactly. If I don't have to go through fucking 4 months of paperwork to get fucking mangoes just a couple 100 miles to the next country over here, that's sweet. That's beautiful. What's behind this initiative from a technology? What's behind this initiative from a technology perspective? That's what Jose Manuel Cantera, technical analyst and project lead at IOTA Foundation, recently shared from a bird's eye view. It involves using EPIC 2.0 data serialization formats for data interoperability. All right, so this is some nerd talk here. IOTA distributed ledgers to register every single event happening within supply chains. Yes. ScyllaDB, NoSQL for scalable, resilient, persistent storage. Let's dive into the details with a close look at two specific use cases: cross-border trade, import-export, and end-to-end supply chain traceability. But first, Cantera's perspective on the technical challenges. All right, we're not going to get too much into this nerd talk here, right? So and if you want, obviously, if you do want to read like the full article, I have the links to every article in the description of the video below, so you can read that yourself. All right, we're going to just go to the use cases of this thing. So use case number 1, cross-border trade. Shipping mangoes from Jamaica to America, right? Cross-border trade. For his first example, Cantera turns to cross-border trade operations. This is a multi-layered domain, and there are many different problems that have to be solved in different places. He warns before sharing a diagram that reins in the enormous complexity of the situation. Exactly. You see this bullshit? Hold on. Where's that? Sorry, guys. Yeah, look at all this shit. That's all the shit you got to do to get a shipment from the exporting from the exporting company here on the left to the importing company or country, sorry, not company, but the company in the country, but you know what I mean? All that bullshit, right? That's the kind of crap you got to go through to get a mango on the fucking table of soccer mom and dad. So the key flows here are the financial procedures, the pure financial transaction between the two parties, the trade procedures, any kinds of documents related to the commercial transaction, the transportation procedures, all the details about transporting the goods, so, you know, renting the crate and everything, putting it on a ship and everything, and then the regulator procedures, the many different documents that must be exchanged between importers and exporters, as well with the public authorities in the business to government relationships. It's a whole hassle. Should we read all this? Hold on. So that's the thing. All right, let's just read this for a second. So how is the IOTA Foundation working to optimize this complex and multi-layered domain? Cantera explains, we're allowing different actors, different government agencies, and the private actors, the traders, to share documents and to verify documents in one shot. Exactly, if you could do it in one shot. Remember, I was preaching about the smart contracts yesterday or the day before, right? Just fuck, right? I can just beep, beep, beep. You know, I might have to get a few pieces of paper signed here or there, but fuck. So whenever consignment moves between East Africa and Europe, all the trade certificates, all the documents can be verified in one shot by the different actors, so by the different bureaus, the different agencies, the different inspectors, the different this, the different that. And the authenticity and the provenance of the documents can be traced properly. In other words, you know that this is a legit document. So that's also going to cut down on fraud, right? So, and as a result, the agility of the trade processes is improved. It's more efficient and more effective, which is great. We want supply chains to flow. So all the actors in the flow visualized above are sharing the documents through infrastructure provided by the IOTA distributed ledger. There we go. Bang! The infrastructure is going to be provided by IOTA, baby. Hold on. Let me touch it. Bang! 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 Yeah. Exactly. Coming out of Africa, baby. Coming out of Africa. Using an architecture that's detailed after the second use case below. Oh. So let's check out the second use case below. Only this article's a long one. We're going to read this use case. We'll probably skip to the end after this. Use case number 2, end-to-end supply chain traceability. So from the time the cow is born to the time it ends up on someone's plate, it's traced. Right? VChain does the same thing. We just read... who do we read here doing that as well? Right. Who is doing that? Huh. I think Amazon and Solana or something. I don't remember. Anyway, look, let's just move on. But there's a couple more of these, and the blockchain is perfect for that. No one can trick it. No one can lie. You can't enter false documents. So little things like illegal arms trade, right? For these arms dealers that are selling, guns and shit on the black market. Yeah, well, you're not going to be able to do that with this, right? Right? You're not going to be able to call a shipment of guns a shipment of potatoes anymore, right? Because there's going to be provenance. If you can't prove that those potatoes were grown somewhere, then the customs inspector are going to be like, wow, we're pretty sure there's not potatoes in this container. Let's open it up and inspect it. Anyways, that's, but that's a use case right there. So look, but in addition to tackling document sharing and verification for cross-border trade, there's another challenge, tracing the provenance of the trade item. So that's what I meant, right? Like if you can't prove, like if I say this is a shipment of potatoes, right, and with this kind of thing right here, the customs inspector will be able to call it up and see the potatoes were grown there, they were processed there, and they're being shipped from here to here, da-da-da-da-da. But if I say, yeah, this is a shipment of potatoes, but you can't prove that, well, where'd you get the potatoes from? Right? What farm did you get them from? A provenance. In other words, where did they start? Well, we know that in this container, there ain't no fucking potatoes. You get it? All right, so it will give it traceability. So let's go on, though. So you're actually tracing the provenance. Provenance means sort of the proof. Like in the art world, you have what's called provenance, right? Because there's a lot of counterfeit art. So you have these certificates that prove this is a Mona Lisa, this is a Michelangelo, this is a Banksy, whatever, right? It's got what's called a provenance certificate, right, in the art world. And so they're going to just do this with everything. They're going to make provenance, show me where you got those potatoes from, or I'm opening this container and I bet I'm going to find some guns and grenades in this bitch, right? Provenance, you got to show. So that'll help stop crime as well. So Cantera emphasizes that when we think about traceability, we need to think about the definition of traceability given by the United Nations. The ability to, so this is the definition by the United Nations. Traceability is the ability to identify and trace the history, the distribution, location, and application of products, parts, and materials to ensure the reliability of sustainability claims in the areas of human rights, labor, including health and safety, the environment, and anti-corruption. So that's the other thing that these things are going to do, is you're going to help with these sort of areas of human rights, labor. You know, you're going to have to show that you're not using slave labor to, I don't know, grow those bananas or whatever, coming out of whatever country or something, right? That you're not destroying the environment by mining for that gold, right? So it also has that kind of humanitarian aspect to it as well. So in principle, traceability implies the ability to follow history, right? Where did the shit come from? Like I said, if I tell the guy at the port this is a shipment of potatoes, all right, show me, right? In the case of trade items, potatoes, in terms of our fantasy gun runner, this means knowing what has been happening with that particular trade item, not only its transportation, but also its origin. Exactly. Where did you get these potatoes, you motherfucker? You know, they were grown in Scotland and da-da-da. Oh, okay. And they'll be able to trace it because it's on the blockchain, right? But if you're just like, trust me, there's potatoes in there. Like, look, dog, you got some guns in there, right? Some black market guns. We're going to open this and we're going to inspect it. So if one of the parties involved in the supply chain is making a claim about sustainability, safety, etc., the validity of that claim must be verifiable. So here's how it looks. All right. For example, consider a seemingly, oh, that's fucked up. So check this out. For example, consider a seemingly simple bag of potato chips. A farmer sells potatoes to a food processor who turns those potatoes into a bag of potato chips. When growing the potato, the farm used a fertilizer, which was produced by another manufacturer and contained raw materials from a different farmer. And when converting potatoes into potato chips, the food processor uses oils that stem from yet another source, and so on and so on. The history of all these things, the potato, the fertilizer, the oil, the bag containing the chips, and so on, needs to be known for traceability on that bag of potato chips. Everything. Gosh, everything. So, for instance, I look at it from the sort of the crime fighting. I look at it for the ease of use, import, export, but I also look at it from the crime fighting perspective. You know, there's a lot of counterfeit medication in the world. Yeah, well, if you say, yeah, this is a shipment of OxyContin, we'll prove it's real. You're going to have the provenance to prove it, right? So counterfeit, women's fashion. Women's fashion gets counterfeited all the time. Counterfeit, all sorts of counterfeit shit. You're going to have to prove it, right? So all these details from when the potatoes were harvested to what fertilizer they used, where that fertilizer came from, and so forth, are all considered critical events. And each of these critical tracking events has key data elements that describe who, what, when, where, why, and even how. Bang! You guys remember I showed you on here when Walmart started using VeChain for the traceability thing? Remember I showed that video? Well, I showed two videos of VeChain traceability, right? I showed you the video of the Chinese lady buying that pork chop, right? And she was scrolling like it told everything about that fucking pig, right? What they fed it, where it was born, when they slaughtered it, what factory it was in, all the shit. And that other one about the Penfolds, the wine, and it told everything about the wine, right? Where the grapes were grown, when they were picked, when they were fermented, when they were crushed, blah, 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 all this shit about wine, right? That's what they're talking about. All right. How much more is this? Oh, are we almost done? Fuck. All right, so look. All right, let's just hurry up, though. Let's just read this and hurry up. The IOTA Foundation applied several core technologies to address the top technical challenges across these use cases: data interoperability, scalability, data stores, scalability, permissionless, feeless, distributed ledger technology, which is their tangle. So let's just get to the tangle part. And again, like I said, if you really do want to nerd out and geek out and read all this, the link is in the description to the video. I'm just not going to bore everyone because I'm boring myself. I'm boring myself. On here, we don't read about the tech of stuff. We talk about it, but we don't get into it all. Scalable data stores. So, blah, blah, blah. These guys are going to store the data. If we're tracking every single item in the supply chain, we need to store a lot of data, and this is a big data problem. And here, ScyllaDB provides many advantages. We can scale our data very easily. We can keep the data for a long period of time at a fine granularity level. Not only that, but we can also combine the best of the NoSQL and SQL worlds because we can have robust schemes for having robust data and trusted data. So IOTA is going to be the tool that's going to create the data, and these guys are the ones that are going to store that data so you can call it up. So like back into my description of the customs inspectors, the border inspectors, they'll be able to call up that data and see it, right? And it'll come from these guys. All right. I got it. Let's just move on. All right. So look. Scalable, permissionless, feeless, distributed ledger technology. So scalable, permissionless, and feeless distributed ledger technology also played a key role in the solution that the IOTA Foundation architected. For this, they tapped the IOTA distributed ledger in combination with protected storages like IPFS to provide the functionalities around data and document verifiability, auditability, and immutability within these peer-to-peer interactions. So, right, all that's going to be on the Tangle. You can verify the documents, you can audit the documents, and they're immutable, obviously, because once they're on the blockchain, no one can change them, so you can't get scammed. All right, so here's a good example, actually. So let's look at, here's a real-world use case, all right. Well, let me get a sip, let me light a smoke. So, I mean, IOTA is amazing like this, right? And this is the same thing VeChain does. Right, end to end. I just talked to you about it, right? Like the pork chop at the Walmart thing we looked at. And so this is the same thing. So if you guys were around back in those days when I did those shows, it's the same thing. But this looks like kind of on a more macro level, right? VeChain seems to work with specific companies in terms of like, okay, Penfolds, you're using us for your traceability, or Walmart made those companies use VeChain for the traceability, but it looks like this is kind of a more macro thing where it would be more, I mean, I don't know. We're going to read on. I haven't read this article yet, but like what I just said, this looks like something that more a customs agent would use, at the borders, where, it doesn't matter what product is being bought or sold or going through that checkpoint at that border crossing, it'll have the provenance. And if not, well, we're going to fucking inspect this cargo, right? We're going to inspect this shipment right here. Is the ultimate goal. So let's read an example. For example, say you hire a particular transporter to move goods. When the activity begins, the transporter can generate an event that the trade items have started moving through the supply chain. So remember I was telling you about my uncle. He could put a GPS tracker in the shipment of containers. The transporter picks up the container and it generates an event that the items are starting to move through the supply chain. And these events are committed to the IOTA distributed ledger. More specifically, the originator of the event generates a transaction on the distributed ledger. And that transaction can be later used by any participant in the supply chain to verify the authenticity of the event. So that would be my uncle, right? So getting a shipment of mangoes out of Jamaica. He would originate the event. I am now, shipping, right? And obviously, there would be provenance on the mangoes, right? That they were grown on the Clarke family farm in this part of Jamaica, blah, 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 right? And anyone can verify and authenticate all that. And once the event is committed, the originator can no longer modify it. That's the blockchain. You can't modify shit. So you can't scam, pay someone to, hey, man, can you write this on this document? No, it's there, right? It's there and it's final, right? So, like I said, the blockchain is really going to help, stop a lot of crime in the world, Yeah, like I said, fake medicine, right? Around the world in the third world, a lot of people go to doctors and they're getting medicine that they think is helping them. It's fucking a sugar pill. Or not a sugar pill, but it's just a piece of bullshit. It's not, there's no medicine in it. Or some of them have like 1/10 of the dosage. So if it's a 20 milligram pill, it'll only have 2 milligrams of whatever the fuck, chemical is in there that is supposed to help them, right? So that's a big deal, and it'll be stuff like that. You won't be able to fake it, right? You're going to have to show the provenance, right? It's going to be traced from the lab. So what's a company? Bayer. Right, Bayer Labs, they make, don't they make aspirin, I think, right? They're the ones who make aspirin. So whenever a shipment of aspirin, it's headache medication, like a Tylenol or something, or like a Tylenol. When they make the aspirin, that aspirin will be tracked. This is the aspirin batch number 123. It'll be tracked into this shipment, into this container, and it'll be tracked when it gets to the border. The border guards will look at it, be like, yes, this is authentic medicine from Bayer, and bring it into their country to sell to their citizens. Whereas a fake, so now if someone wants to counterfeit medicine, how are you going to get it through customs if everything's got provenance? Right? You won't be able to do it because you don't have the Bayer licensing. The Bayer thing, Bayer will have some sort of thing that will authenticate that this is a Bayer product, right? So they're not going to have that. So they're not going to be able to ship that kind of shit anymore. All right, so, and that's a big deal, A lot of people, like I said, millions of people around the world every day, they're taking medicine that is not even medicine. It's just a fucking sugar pill. It's a bullshit pill. What do you call a placebo, right? It's a placebo. It looks the same. It's got the labeling on the package, but that's about all that's the same. Because inside, there's hardly any medicine, if any at all. It's a big deal. So I'm a humanitarian, motherfucker. I want people to be well. Anyways, more specifically, the originator of the event generates a transaction on the distributed ledger. And that transaction, so, again, like the originator of the event. So that would be Bayer, makes the pills. They originate the event. So, okay, so blah, blah, blah. And once the event is committed, the originator can no longer modify it. If the event was modified, the verification step would fail, and the supply chain partners might be understandably concerned. Yeah, and that's when the cops come in. What's this fake bullshit doing here? So how it fits together, again, you can go to the link in the description and blah, blah, blah. So the conclusion of all this. So supply chain digitization is rife with technical challenges, so it's not surprising that a non-traditional mix of technologies is required to meet the IOTA Foundation's highly specialized needs. Cantera sums up nicely. Sums it up nicely. He says, it requires interoperability. Hold on one second. Okay. He says, It requires interoperability, which means it's important to align with the open standards, EPCIS 2.0, the decentralized ID coming from the W3C verifiable credentials. So these are new, you guys know, all these new standards are coming into place now because of blockchain and because of FATF and, just because of the digitization of stuff. Like, what's that one? There's one everyone's talking about. What's it called? Hold on, let me look. Let me look 1 second. Because actually I have it here. Right? That one standard that everyone, all the crypto people are gung-ho about is, it's called ISO 20022, ISO 20022. Right? That's that big one, right? That's the new standard that's coming out. And so the blockchains, we're going to read this story tomorrow, actually, but I'll give you a little hint. VeChain, Cardano, Stellar, Verg, and Algorand are ISO 20022 compliant and ready to conquer the $1 trillion international payments market. So, bye! And actually, that's what I'm going to read for you tomorrow. So there's a teaser. Stick around for tomorrow. All right, but back to today. So these are all the sort of things, the new standards that are coming out, right? And, these guys are already prepared for these standards and the verifiable credentials and whatnot that you need. So it requires a reference architecture to guarantee that semantic interoperability and some reusable building blocks are used. It requires decentralization, and decentralizing data requires distributed ledger technology. In particular, public, permissionless, and feeless distributed layers like IOTA complemented with IPFS and relying more and more on decentralized application. It also requires data scalability, which we talked about a second ago. IOTA is infinitely scalable, and availability. And ScyllaDB is the perfect partner here. Last but not least, it requires a trusted data sharing technologies like decentralized IDs, distributed ledger technologies, and peer-to-peer. So look, IOTA. Oh, and there's a little video down here. So it looks like you can go to the, click the link. I'm going to put the link in the description. If you want to watch the video of it, it's the SCYLLA Summit 2022, so last year, but sustainable and scalable supply chains. All right, so there you go. IOTA hodlers, look. Bang! Holy, it was a long time to get to that bang. Holy, you had to scroll up that motherfucker. All right. But anyways, that's awesome, right? And that's the same thing VeChain does, right? It's provenance from the beginning to the end, right? A bottle of wine. Okay, well, when did those grapes come out? When were they harvested? When were they squished into juice? When were they turned into wine? How long was the fermenting process? Where were they kept? In what temperature was this wine kept? Blah, 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 blah. We watched a lady do it. If you go to my videos and search VeChain, right, you'll see every video that I made with VeChain and look for VeChain's penfolds. And you'll see, and there's a video, and the lady is scrolling all the shit about the fucking wine. And, people take that wine thing seriously, right? Like, if you're paying $5,000 for a bottle of wine, wow, you've got to really be a wine master. You got to be a real wine lover and rich. And so they want to know, right? Where were these grapes grown? They want to know everything. And so that's the kind of thing. And so that VeChain does. And like I said, more on a company-to-company level. And this thing, IOTA here, this thing looks more like a bigger, sort of like what governments would use. Like I said, like at a port of entry. A port of entry, a border crossing. Yes, where's this shipment from? And they'll scan it, beep, and they'll either be provenance or won't. And if there's no provenance, all right, open it up. Let's check out what's in this motherfucker, right? So great for IOTA, hodlers. Bang, another onboarding. All right, let's move on.